All right. Well, we are here for round three of Write It Now. I am joined by champion and runner-up of the previous one, as is tradition. My Shark Waifu and Dermot are joining us. We've read all the stories. We have gathered all of our thoughts internally, but have yet to express them to one another. So we have no idea who's going to win, no idea how anyone feels about anything. So I think the procedure tonight is to go through the five stories that we got and chew them around, discuss them, see what we think. First, want to give the sort of standard disclaimer that it is indeed an undertaking to do this in 2 hours, and it's awesome that everyone who tried did it, and you should be proud of yourself because it's hard. So congrats on that. It is indeed an accomplishment. And as per usual, the plug, head on over to Thunderdome. Why not? If you thought you could write a story in 2 hours, well, what can you get done in a week? So that's what we'll sort of start with. But I guess without further ado, you all want to say hello, introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Dermot. That's all.
I'm my shark waifu. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
that's about it. Yeah.
easy enough. Yeah, it ain't about us tonight. It's about the story. So we can crack right on to that. Oh boy, I'm moving the window around. I don't. That's gonna change the recording format, but whatever. Okay, so do either of you want to take point on? I guess we'll just go through them in the order that we got them, unless anyone has an objection or feels like they really want to talk about one first. We go with
The
that.
order we got them is fine.
Cool. All right. Anyone want to start us off with a quick encapsulation of "You Will Eat Dust"?
I guess I can.
Sure, go for it.
Hold on. Zoom's not responding.
Yeah, so we'll do a quick encapsulation of each story and then we'll sort of discuss the thoughts.
Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
This is weird, but I'll go ahead anyways. So this story was basically uh a guy going to a church, and my Zoom is not responding. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
This is
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, we'll let you know if you ever just stop making
Okay.
noise.
So a guy goes to a church, and he's met by the father of the church, and they have an interaction, and you can tell there's a tone, there's a mood to the story that this guy is, he's not going to, he's up to no good, basically. And he enters the church, and he has an interaction with the priest, and he ends up shooting the priest and stealing the money.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's basically what happened. I felt like this was a pretty good story. I liked the voice. There was some good lines in it.
Yeah, I think I'm inclined largely to agree. I did like this. What stood out for me the most was the descriptions of the characters through their motions and their movements. Thought they were really slick and sort of folded in nicely. I got a very good sense of Father Harlow, is I think how that would be pronounced, just through like the way that he moved through space. And that was really nice and artfully done. I think there was an inevitable kind of quality to the ending. I was kind of hoping for something else to happen. Not necessarily because I wanted I wanted a happy outcome, but it just sort of felt, again, kind of inevitable. And when that happens, I'm always waiting for a surprise, and the surprise didn't really come.
That is exactly, yeah, what I wrote down as well. It wasn't surprising at all, but I think the inevitability of it was foreshadowed pretty strongly throughout the story as well, which is its own. So there was still tension, but yeah, the ending wasn't, if not surprising, at least felt earned and inevitable.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Yeah,
I
it
think,
wasn't a bad sort of inevitability. It was
Mm-hmm.
just what had to happen or what was going to happen.
and I don't know if, again, I think something horrific probably did need to happen, but I would have preferred maybe something different. And I can't come up with anything. I
You
don't
had
know.
hope,
So
huh?
you got 2 hours. It's hard. I
Yeah,
think there can be. I have like a sort of a general rule of thumb when I write stories because I don't know if I can really carry forth an inevitable conclusion like this with strength on its own. If there's an obvious like either or outcome, like either he shoots him or he doesn't, find a third option. Like, and that's a good rule of thumb that I try to follow because again, I don't think I have the strength of prose to make stories good enough on their own. So I try to come up with something.
Or at
Um,
least allude to a third option to keep
sure.
the reader guessing.
Mm, yeah.
mm-hmm.
But overall, I mean, for considering 2 hours, I think this was pretty strong, if I'm being real. So I did enjoy it. So
Yeah, I'd say my biggest problems were the rhythm of the writing was a little staccato, a little too much da 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 da.
hmm
Could have used with some variety there. And the two characters were good, but they were also complete tropes. Like I mean, they were stereotypes.
yeah.
So hard to do anything else in the time period, but it would have been nice.
Yeah, and that's a good point because I think you can start with characters like this and then, with the benefit of some time, bring in some nuance, vary them up a little bit. But starting with, archetypes like this, tropey characters like this, it's not a bad way to start. So yeah, cool. All things considered, I thought again a pretty solid entry considering the time constraints, and yeah, that's how I felt. So anyone have any other final thoughts on this one? Okay, cool. We can we can move along. Uh,
One second. I'm
oh,
going to restart Skype because it's been on a send a crash report this whole time.
Skype or Zoom?
Or Zoom, sorry.
Oh, okay. So yeah,
They're
we'll
back.
we'll pause for a moment. Oh, in fact, I can pause the recording. I'm gonna do that. All right, and we're back. Okay, Shark, would you like to take the encapsulation of this one or the next one?
I'll do this one.
Go for it.
This one was the $100 hat. And essentially, it is a man who is trying to get hat out of a dryer and is having a really hard time of it, especially when some sort of creature, eldritch entity from the back of the dryer seizes onto the hat and eventually pulls the hat and him into the back of the dryer dimension.
Yeah, the beyond section of the bed and the bath, right?
Yes. So this one, I thought this was a fun read, I thought for me. I did get stuck on the idea that, who would put a hat in a dryer? Like
Oh,
that was like so incompetent that I was having a hard time there. But taking everything at face value, I had a good time with it and the characters and their interactions and Frank's very stubborn old manness about no, he has to get this hat back. Um, yeah, I did have to reread the middle section when the entity first shows up because it was introduced very perhaps a little bit subtly, and I was like, wait, what's actually going on now? But then I was along for the ride.
no. Dermot, any thoughts, responses? Are you messing with us, Dermot?
Come on, Zoom.
All right, well, I'll take my turn while Dermot gets themselves together. I call my sort of comment on this was that it's a romp. It felt like a romp as
Hmm.
a fun read is kind of exactly how I held on to it. The lineup for me is it felt sort of almost like a Gremlins kind of like, is this funny? Is this scary? What are we kind of doing here in a good way? I actually quite enjoyed that. Um, and I definitely enjoyed the interplay and the back and forth between this just old bickerish kind of couple. It felt very believable. I didn't have a problem with the hat going in the dryer, but that's only because I just recently put one in the dryer because my 3-year-old son did a tie-dye hat and I had to do that. So, but
Okay.
you're right. If it's a hat with structure, that probably doesn't belong in the dryer. Who would do that, right? A floppy bucket hat, that's fine, but
Yeah,
like
you could
a
get away with that.
brimmed solid hat, I'm not so sure. I think my overall takeaway though was I kind of wanted the ending just didn't quite get there for me. I wanted to either sort of see the creature in more vivid detail or have it be a bit more of a mystery. Like, yeah, the motivation, like I get it. He likes his hat, but it felt like there's a subtext there that maybe we're missing, and I'm not quite sure what it was, but either way, it was still very, very fun and enjoyable, and I could see it all sort of play out in my head. So I did enjoy this piece quite a bit as well, all things considered. So how
I
about you?
think,
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
oh, I was just going to say, yeah, I agree that the ending didn't end quite as strongly. I think I was looking for a bit more of a reaction from Gladys, the wife, on her husband disappearing into the dryer, which it didn't seem like we got anything really to sort of tie it all together,
Yeah.
you know. Yeah.
As the husband disappears, so too does our Dermot. I'm gonna pause recording while we try to figure out what's going on here. One second. All right, and we're back. Just saw some slight technical issues, but we're back, and it is Dermot's time to respond, react to the hat story, the $100 hat, I think it's called. So go ahead, Dermot.
think you guys did a pretty good job of summarizing the story and some of the problems and some of the strong points. I thought the writing was strong. Like I had no real complaints about like the prose itself, and I did think that the characters were established really well without just telling me who the characters were. It came through very naturally, and the old man particularly was very believable. The way he was stubborn about his hat that might have been worn by Elvis. But yeah, I had no idea what the hell the Cthulhian horror was, and I wanted to know. Like, I
Yeah.
wanted more of that. Felt like it could have been served with another like 500, 600 words of when the action actually happened. Like, you tell what was going on. I never felt like that was properly described. Like, in the washing machine or dryer, was he out of it? Was the thing out of it? Was hands on the thing? Like, we lost some of that somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, and
But
Yeah,
I
I
think
think
oh, go
it
ahead.
was in the text. I think it was in the text, but it was a little hard to follow the sort of the
it was there, but it was
maybe
muddy.
choreography of the dryer fight.
A beautiful dance. I felt like the ending inevitable again, but it wasn't much of a payoff. Like it wasn't satisfying to me. It
Yeah.
was fun.
I think I largely agree with that too. And I think, unlike there's another one or two stories here that I thought kind of wasted time and like we could have maybe gotten ahead to something faster. I wouldn't have liked to have seen much of any of this cut. I really did enjoy it. But if you look at the word count, there were 200 words left to play with. I don't know if the timing was an issue, but we could have gotten more. More again, just like of the monster, of the conclusion, whatever it might be. As
Yeah,
it
I
is
would have
kind
liked
of
to know. Oh, sorry.
no, no, we sort of get an ending tag that sort of kind of
Mm.
tells us some stuff, but doesn't really show it. And I think I would have swapped out the ending. If you cut out that ending, you get another 100 words, and I think we could have gotten a lot more fun stuff. So, yeah,
The Cthulhian horror, like a really big fan of Elvis too. Is that why we had that conflict?
that'd be funny.
So I didn't
Very.
really like that. He just found this washing machine or this dryer, right?
Mm,
Mm,
Then like
yeah.
none of that mystery was paid off. Like we got nothing for that. It was just set up and then just left there. Like
mm,
magical dryer, or is somebody, or did the monster just crawl in? What was going on there?
Mm.
yeah,
But you didn't finish it.
no. All right. Well, I think we said all we need to say about a $100 hat.
Worth $100, not the
Okay.
hat.
So, we'll move along to one small choice, and I believe I'm up on deck to sort of encapsulate a bit. And effectively, what we have here is the a story that teases an awful lot of different things. A potential multiverse, complicated thing. I will be quite honest that about a third of the way in, once I sort of saw what was happening, I got excited because I was like, "Oh, cool. Okay, what the hell's going to happen?" I do think that the story spends a lot of time introducing a lot of things, and then ultimately when like the box gets sort of more pronounced and the rules come out, it's like it all kind of gets redone again to the point like, well, what do we need all of this talking about it for? And it's like, yeah, we kind of get it. This is weird, this is crazy, take my word for it, and we kind of do that for a while. It's somewhat believable because it's a crazy idea, but I'm not gonna lie, I was hoping for more, and that might have been naive because in reality, this is just it's a guy being a dick to someone else in a bar for seemingly a bar bet. Which you know what? Fine. That is probably the most logical conclusion for this story, but I don't necessarily read stories for like the most logical conclusion. I kind of wanted the fun thing to happen. I wanted why did he have to spill the drink? Like I wanted you as the writer to give me a fun answer to that, not a cop out. And it kind of felt ultimately like a cop out, and it was it's the bar bet story, right? Of like, I bet the bartender that I can like piss in a shot glass and then I miss, and then my buddies pay me a whole bunch of money because the bartender let me piss all over the bar. That's the joke, and that's kind of the story. Eh. It's fine, but I did feel a little cheated and a little shortchanged, if I'm gonna be real about it. So that was my takeaway from this one.
I mostly agree with you, and I would say that you got to keep in mind that any rug pull to the character in the story is also a rug pull to the reader.
Or it can be, for sure. Yeah. And
And
in this case,
it
it felt like it.
felt like, okay, sure, that's a thing that could have happened, but wouldn't it have been better if you just followed through? That would have been more fun. Let's do that if you're going to do it.
Yeah,
So
I had
1,500
that
words.
feeling as well. I had that feeling as well. It's like I do want to see what, this crazy time travel, whatever is going on, what payoff this is going to have for all of these crazy things that he's being asked to do. But I also knew, like, logically, this is a story written in 2 hours that's 1,400 words long. Like, I'm not going to get the payoff for this.
That's true. So I don't know if
Either
the
going to be the
story was,
beginning of a
yeah.
bigger story or what we ended up with.
I don't know if it was swinging for the fences and then the author realized, oh shit, I only have like 40 minutes left. In which case I get it. But yeah, it's
Oh
probably
yeah.
going to be unlikely to pull off a story that we wanted to see in 2 hours. That's challenging.
Shit, I
Yeah.
actually have to end this thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Again, was fine. I had no problems with the writing. I thought maybe it would have been better served to have the beginning. And this kind of lends credence to the idea that he wasn't planning on stopping when he stopped it, or her. It would have been probably better third person and not switching to third person at the very end. And to do the intro in first person if you're going to do that.
Well, I think ultimately this is a story where the author knows exactly what they did. And it's not to say that it's an indictment. They know what they did. They told kind of an extended joke, and it's fine. Um, I do think like if we have a story like this, one thing that I could have done with was a bit more atmosphere. I don't quite know what this bar is, and if you're going to be very specific about where you set a story, a line in the beginning just about how it smells, how it sounds can bring us in, just as a point to just sort of improve. But
Maybe, and also, um, I missed it, but how did he know his name was Jerry? Like, it's very plausible he could have caught that, but I didn't
yeah,
anywhere in the text. I didn't see that.
I think
So,
that's like right at the end. The waitress was also in on it.
I don't
She
know.
was saying- Yeah, the ending, besides the concept, I think the ending was a little bit bumpy in suddenly we're getting names for all of these
for
guys
me,
and these other characters are being introduced and it's like, wait, whoa, what's going on? Um, Beyond just the fact that this was a bar bet, and
Yeah,
it seemed very low stakes, like $20 for this elaborate setup.
it's quite
done
an
for
it's quite an
free.
endeavor for 20 bucks.
Yeah,
Well, it's 20 each. It's 20 each. So there is
each,
that.
yes.
I don't know how many people are in
Hey,
this
you gotta
lobby.
give the waitress her cut though.
That's true. Yeah, I gotta tip out. Gotta tip out all the accomplices. Um, but okay. I mean, yeah, again, serviceable. Writing was fine. So yeah, fair
I
enough.
mean, I was in. I was hoping it was something else. So I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
you know
It
a
did have my
testament to his
attention.
strength. Yeah,
Way
yeah,
you're gonna pull Groundhog Day off in that amount of time though.
Exactly.
yeah.
All right. Well, we got two stories left, and there's three of us. I will defer to you guys since you're here helping me out. Do either of you feel compelled to start us off with the mirror? If
Not
not, I'll,
me.
I'll take it. But if someone would like to, go for it.
It's not me for this one.
Okay. Shark, any interest?
I was also going to say not me, but I will have.
I can take it. It's fine.
Okay, go ahead. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
I
Yeah.
mean, I think so. This is a miserable story, and that's not to
Mm.
say that not a miserable quality, but it's a miserable story. At least that's how I sort of read it. I will be honest that as I started reading it, I realized I don't know what's going on very quickly. I think we started off. If you start off with a line of dialogue like that that isn't not clear reference to anything specific, and then the next paragraph itself also, I still don't really know what's happening. That's a really hard way to start a story. I was lost kind of for moment one. I couldn't really tell oftentimes who was who. this is where names could be really, really helpful. Small touch, and it honestly felt a little intentional that there weren't names, but I don't know if that really served the agenda of the story and whatever it was, because it really just seemed like just circular suffering. I'll be real, like the story made me feel something. It made me feel sad. That's not a bad thing. It did make me feel something. Um, I just don't quite understand what happened. And that could be my reading comprehension. I know that my reading comprehension is not great, but I had a hard time following much of the thrust of the action. I don't really understand even what happened at the end and who even is saying these things. So hard for me to follow. I think my big no was I don't like there was a part where it's like I know, you get it. And someone goes, I get it now too. And I was like, well, I don't get it as the reader.
Yeah,
Could you clue
that was
me in,
my
please?
biggest.
So that's kind of how I felt. But take it away, my fellow co-judges.
I think you were pretty spot on. Like a lot of the clarity of this story was like sacrificed on the altar of prose, basically. Like the writing seemed, and it seemed like it was intentional, and they were trying to tell the story. I just think they would have been better served by telling me what was going on instead of beating around the bush. Yeah,
Yeah, and I
like what
don't
you
think
said.
there's very many changes that would have to be made to make this give this a lot more clarity because there's ultimately only three characters in the story: the mother and the father, now deceased, and the son. Um,
Dead.
Ed? Oh, I don't think he
He
ever
was
had.
dead.
Oh, Dad, yeah.
I didn't know that either. I
Okay. That was my interpretation was this is the mother and the son talking, and then this is where I got confused because this third paragraph is discussing why the father's not in the picture, which is he got hit by the
Thought
car in the
I thought he
yard.
was like just injured. You know, he was in a coma almost, or like bedridden.
Yeah,
In reading this, a reaction I'm having now, and I hope I'm wrong because it would be very, very sad if I'm right, but I'm wondering if a lot of this is very personal and there could be a lot of assumptions, not necessarily assumptions, but perhaps the author filled in a lot of their own blanks, but we don't get them. Again,
So it did feel real. It had an element
right, exactly.
of like personality to it or
that
personalness.
was a big strength is the characters did seem like three-dimensional. It wasn't, there was, not everyone wasn't like just the good suffering person or the bad suffering person. They were all sort of in it together. And that felt very realistic to me. And these, the dialogue also felt realistic in that if you're not if you're not one of these people, you don't necessarily know what's going on.
A real
Um,
conversation, they wouldn't be giving the salient details we want as readers. But
yes,
at the same time, you're writing a story.
Mhm. Yeah.
we do need a little bit more of a window in. Yeah.
Yeah. So again, my condolences if the author, if this is an expression of something that really came from your life. But it would make a lot of sense to me if that were the case. But if not, it does mean that I think you can pretty well inject yourself into a scene. This does feel like something that perhaps would work better as a play, where we could have some visual tie-in or some buy-in. But yeah, it did seem to get under everyone's skin at least a little, which hey, that's not bad for 2 hours.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think the prose was really strong, and the picture that it painted of this family was, once I sort of was started to understand it and unwrap it, I was like, okay, there's something here. This is compelling.
Mhm.
What is it that they get at the end? Oh, I'm not really sure. What is the mother asking for? Is it sort of an assisted death situation? Like that was my
Mhm.
takeaway, but that's quite dark.
Could
Um,
be.
but yeah, so maybe the ambiguity is on purpose, but I think there could be, yeah, I
Mhm.
think it could be more clear for
Yeah.
sure.
Okay. Any last thoughts from anyone on Mirror, the Mirror?
Summed it up pretty well.
All right. Well, we've got eco-social animatronics to bring us home. Would either of you want to sort of start us off on that one?
I mean, I guess I can.
Go for it.
Um, the premise is oof. what is the premise here? They're building like a little neighborhood in a city, and the main character is the architect, I guess, and he's building a dinosaur theme park. Some reason I never was clear. A fair bit of dialogue back and forth. There's a fair bit of like navel gazing from the main character,
Mhm.
and he finishes the project, and they set it all up, and they're having the big reveal, and then an alien pops out of him, the guy giving the talk, and look, I don't really know what happened here or why, and I'm not sure the author did either, but it was kind of fun to read.
Mhm.
Don't think it was a complete story.
Yeah, I think this, yeah, the middle section especially just sort of moved us from the beginning to the end without really adding anything.
Mhm.
Is what I feel like. I did think the start, the beginning was strong. I was like, okay, this is fun. This is sort of zany is the word that I wrote down because it's like dinosaur park. I think the phrase peer-led acupuncture made me like, what is exactly going on here? And sort of the acronym, it made it feel like this is sort of like, yeah, anything goes, sort of let's throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks. Urban planning. Which I was like, okay, let's see, how does this pay off? How does the narrator's neuroses pay off at the end of this story? But I don't think we got exactly what the beginning promised.
This is another case of the author or the writer just going like, "Welp, I've got 20 minutes and I have to end this thing. Let's go." And he went. I did not feel like an earned ending to me, and I felt like the pacing, the writing was fine. I liked the writing. I liked the internal monologue here. I just felt like the pacing was all over the place, like way
Yeah.
too much, way too slow in the beginning, way too fast at the end.
I do think the story could have benefited from focusing on one of the things and like maybe just staying there. Like I think the most frustrating sentence of this story happens in the first sentence of the second beat. We managed to actually build the damn thing. Well, that sounds interesting. I'd like to hear about that, but instead we get that, and then immediately after that, it's 3 weeks after the launch. It's like, oh wait a minute. So hold on, this thing's been open for 3 weeks. How do people feel about it? That like there's like just two sentences where a whole bunch of stuff gets glossed over. And here's what I'm thinking. Like I like that this prompt or this story handled the topic of a pitch. Like it starts with like a pitch of an idea. Maybe it should have just stayed there. Like have it be a pitch. Like how does something like this actually get approved? Who would ever say yes to this? The story of how we get from animatronic dinosaurs to let's go, let's give that a shot. That seems kind of interesting. But you can't do a pitch, the thing, the alien. It's a little much. And I'll note too, I think this was like
I
our
interpret,
shortest entry, right? Like there was room. You could have done more. So there's that.
yeah, I guess my interpretation of the end was a bit different. I think what what I think happens is that the secretary from the US is standing there and then the animatronic dinosaur like bites his head off.
I
What
Um,
honestly
happened?
didn't I didn't know what
and
happened, so
then
I
and
was
this was
assuming.
like some sort of plot by the mayor, and I was like,
I
where's this
confess it was a little hard for me
political?
to read it with my eyes rolling that hard.
It was a lot.
Fair, yeah,
Introduced
I didn't
very
quite
quickly.
understand what happened at the end
Yeah,
myself either, so.
yeah.
But
Um,
again, no real major complaints about the strength of the writing or the prose. And I think that's kind of across the board. There really wasn't anything that felt like, man, did you even get through freshman English? Like nothing felt off. And again, for 2 hours, well done to everyone.
mhm.
But yeah, this didn't feel like a complete kind of story. I kind of wish it picked one thing and tried really hard to do it well, whatever that was. And it just kind of went from thing to thing and never really found a home or an identity, I guess.
Been a good story. If maybe you have some more time, maybe keep playing with it.
That's true. I think, and the same thing can be said for, I think, maybe all of these. Like, you only gave yourself 2 hours, so whether it's characters that started off sort of as tropes, or it's this really neat, cool seedling of an idea that just needed more time to gestate. I know that it can be really hard to like take something like this and then expand upon it, but everyone ought to give it a shot if you've got the time. Why not? So,
Yeah, all of this is a really solid foundation.
Hmm.
again in 2 hours.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
you know,
All right. Well, does anyone have anything else to say about the eco-social animatronics?
Covered
Okay,
it.
so I think we're gonna conclude recording now while we do our little deliberations. But this is sort of our crit video, so I'll be posting this in the thread. So thank you both for joining me, and I hope this was a fun experience. Anything else before we sign off?
Zoom sucks.
Yeah, it does. Let's be real, it does. I know, but it's the easiest way to get something recorded. But we made it work. Yeah.
we did get there, yes. And well done again to everyone who wrote stuff. Like, I had a really good time reading everything, and they were
Mhm.
all very different
Yeah.
entries.
And
And
I'll be posting about this too, but I have a couple of fresh ideas for where to take this contest and how to make it look. So just be on the lookout for that if you stuck around for this long. Just keep your eyes on the thread, and again, head over to Thunderdome if you want to write more. It's a great place to go. Good community, good people. So until then, for Dermot and my shark waifu, this is Chili saying thank you so much for participating in Write It Now. Take care, guys.
Hi.